Oh my goodness, it has been such a long time. Happy belated 2025 to everyone. This is the first new version of events on LinkedIn with no longer doing audio events, and super excited for this series that we started doing last year with you're going to meet such an incredible, brilliant and kind person. We created this series of closing the gap between your health span versus lifespan, because what's happening is, due to technology and a lot of the resources that we have now, many people are living longer because of all this advancement in like medication and procedures and all these different things. Yet they're kind of losing the dignity part, where just because you're living, if you don't have your health, if you can't like go and do the things that you want to do, right, it's very impactful. So that is a huge part of the mission that Suzanne is on, in terms of helping people to kind of close that gap and make it to where at 81, which we'll dive into shortly, she is healthier than she was at 50. And she will talk about this more in depth, but at 81, she has the metabolic health of somebody in their 20s, right? And with a new year coming, well, the first month's almost over, but every time there's a new year, health and wellness are usually at the very top of people's lists, right? I want to get in the best shape of my life, I want to be healthy, I want to lose weight, like all these different things. And people perform really, really well for the first month or two. And then what happens is, by the time like February and March hit, over 50% of people are like completely done with these goals that they had set for themselves. And when it comes to this idea of health and wellness, it's really all about sustainability. So, just for full disclosure, the as I'm sure a lot of you have probably seen, Florida is experiencing stormy and really cold weather. So my connection may be like in and out. If that happens, um, we will be back shortly. I just want to give people that disclosure, so if it comes up, like nobody's freaking out. And oh my goodness, like there are so many people that talk about health and wellness. I mean, there's hundreds of these health and wellness companies. It seems like every day there's a new one appearing. Suzanne's hands down the most genius, brilliant person that I've met when it comes to health and wellness. Everything that she talks about, from the science aspect of it to actually living her message and being a product of her product, is just so mind boggling. And it, what a lot of people are missing in this space of health and wellness, is it's really all about longevity and sustainability. And she's been a part of it for 50 plus years as a health and wellness entrepreneur. She started her career on the science side, right? She went to college to be a scientist, and we'll let her kind of talk about that. But she's truly an incredible person, and I've learned so much from working with her. We became friends through a mentorship program that we met at 2.5 years ago. And yeah, with no further ado, I want to bring on my wonderful friend and client, Suzanne.
Hi, Paul. Thanks so much for that kind introduction. I appreciate you a lot. So,
Yeah,
thank
Suzanne, thank you so much for being here. You know, you and I have we've talked so much on these conversations. Last year it started out as audio events, and now with the changes of LinkedIn, we've been pivoting to live video. And I remember one of the big things that we had talked about before the year ended was that it's so interesting how at the beginning of the new year, right, when everybody's so focused on their health goals and their, weight loss and nutrition and all these different things, a lot of people will perform really, really well for those first 2 months, but they don't manage to sustain and cross the finish line. And I'm really curious for you, because you've been at this for we say 50 plus years, but I mean, health has been a huge part of your life probably since you were little, right? And
Yeah.
you've helped thousands of people with so many different things. And at 81, you're healthier than you were at 50, which really just proves this point that age is nothing than a number. What can you share with people, number one, about like, there's so many people who prioritize this and they probably haven't even started yet, right? Or it's just like taking that first step. And then the second part of that question is, what tips and strategies can you share with other people to actually like sustain their health, right? Because it's the going back to this whole instant gratification and how everybody's so used to like getting everything so quick. You have a lot of people who they've been eating poorly or not exercising for decades, and they expect like within a couple weeks, like, oh, I'm going to lose all this weight and get these results. And that's not really how that works. So what can you share with us in terms of how have you been able to sustain your health and fitness over the past 50 plus years and not have it like compromise, right? Because there's a lot of people that think, oh, I don't have time, oh, like I have so many things going on. You're an entrepreneur, you travel, you have grandkids, you raise your family like throughout all these things, yet you've been able to sustain it. So what can you share with us that was kind of been the secret to your success?
Well, luckily I had a mom and a dad that were interested in, mom never cooked out a can or a box, so that was a good start for me. And I didn't know any different because that's how I was brought up. Although I do have a sister that rebelled against that. She's 4 years older and not nearly in this good health as I am. So it does make a huge difference. And what really sustained me is, well, must say I have a lot of determination. Once I set a goal for myself, I don't give up on it. I'm like the little dog grabbing onto the rag and saying, I ain't letting it go. Uh, so I did my forms of exercise from the time I was in high school was I did yoga and I walked, and I thought that was that was going to be keeping my weight where I wanted it, keeping my muscles where I needed them to be. And then when I was 50, I went to the gynecologist. Us women have to go every year to get a checkup, and that year I went, the doctor asked if I'd ever had a bone density test scan, and I hadn't. So uh, I agreed to do that, and I went down to that appointment with all the confidence in the world that I was in good shape because I had taken calcium, since I was a kid. My mom was giving me vitamins. She found Shockley when I was 13, so that was a lucky break for me that I've been on those products all my life. Um, and I'd done yoga and I'd walked, so I had by then probably 500, 500 plus thousand miles on my shoes, not always the same pair. And so when the results came back, I had the beginnings of osteopenia, and the doctor wanted me to take Fosamax. Well, Fosamax was a new drug on the scene at that point in time. Nobody really knew how it, the side effects or whatever. And it was supposed to make your bones more dense. Well, I don't take drugs, so I thought, excuse me. So I contacted a couple of chiropractors that use my products and asked them, and they both said get a personal trainer. Excuse me. And so the coach at gymnastics, there I finally got it up. The gymnastics coach at UNC, I live in Chapel Hill, is a customer of mine. So I asked him who he could suggest because I wanted somebody that was knowledgeable of exercise physiology. It wasn't just the big gorilla in the gym that can't put his arms down because he's got too much bulk. and I started lifting weights. And I went back in 3 months to get my follow-up checkup to see what difference Fosamax had made in those 3 months. Well, the doctor was flabbergasted by the fact that my bone density had gone up 7%. And she called me. She said, I couldn't wait to tell you this for you to come for your visit. And I've never seen Fosamax work so well. And I said, well, guess what? I didn't take Fosamax. And that really flabbergasted her. And she said, well, what did you do? I said, I started lifting weights. And it wasn't easy for me to start. I started with little weights and then I go home with sore muscles and maybe I have to go to the chiropractor to get something put back in place that I moved the wrong direction. But, with a little time, I caught on and to my surprise, I really enjoyed it. So I continued that. It became my way of really escaping the stress of my daily activities, my work, my business, and everything that I had to take care of. It was my hour to be with a trainer and just me. And so I continued that, and I sort of got addicted to it, and it became my lifestyle even more. I still walk, but I have it's morphed into now that I have two trainers. One comes to my home twice a week, and another one I go to their studio twice a week. So I have two trainers that I work out with 4 days a week. And even in my 80s, I am much stronger than I was, 10 years ago, even a few 2 or 3 years ago. I have just really gained strength. One is the second trainer trains in a different way that I have made big gains, and I use I'm a Shaklee distributor. I have a Shaklee business, and I use a recovery drink after every time I do an exercise. It helps me repair the rips and tears my muscles. So beans builds lean muscle and restores the glycogen stores in the muscle, so that I can work out and the next day and have a good workout. Which that's what I've done, and like I said, I kind of got addicted to it. It was my, it was the time, everybody needs me time, and that turned into my me time. And so that's how I've sustained it because I really, really enjoyed it. And my health is my prized possession. That's why I like to close the gap for people, because if you don't have your health, you don't have anything. You can ask somebody that doesn't have their health how much they how important health is, and they'll tell you. If you can't get out of the chair, you have to sit all day long because you're weak, you're whatever, you've got heart disease, you have diabetes, you're overweight, you can't move around. That's not life, that's existing. And I want life and be able to enjoy it. So that's how and I worked. I have a graduate degree from UCLA in biochemistry. When we moved to North Carolina, my husband got a job teaching uh, nutrition to medical students, which they get very little of. Um, and I worked for the Environmental Protection Agency, running a clinical chemistry lab for them for 15 years. And I was really getting to the point that I wanted to get out of there. And so I decided I was going to turn my passion, that inspiring others to take good care of their health, I was going to build my business around that. And I knew Shaklee products were good, so I had no problem partnering with them because all the science behind the products. I'm a science nerd, so that's really important to me. And every product is based on solid science, and they have a lot of peer-reviewed scientific journal articles done in major universities. That clicked a note with me because I know how hard it is to get a peer-reviewed scientific journal article published. And also they use good manufacturing practices in the process of creating the products, so that every step in the manufacturing process is quality control. That's not required by the government. People think that is, but the FDA has nothing to do with it. It's the drug industry. It's not the nutrition industry. So if somebody says they're multivitamin or whatever is approved by the FDA, that's a red flag. That's not true.
Yeah.
Anyways, that's kind of my story in a nutshell. When I started my business, I didn't have any people skills. That I was stubborn and determined, and I haven't. Um, that was 53 years ago, and I'm still doing it. And I've helped thousands of people over all those years. I have customers that I have been repeat business purchase product purchases every month for the last 53 years. So I think that speaks a lot about the quality that Shockley products are. That why would somebody come back every month for 53 years to keep buying it if it didn't work? So that's another strong support in my mind that these things do make a difference for people. And
Yeah.
I have a lot of clients that are in their golden years that are not sedentary and weak and sickly. They're active and on the go and doing things. So
Yeah, that's incredible, and I feel like at the end you really touched on the key to sustainability when it comes to health and wellness, right? And it all goes back to that science perspective. A lot of times people are getting their information from sources that either weren't trained or qualified to do it, right? Like you and I always talk about, it's so interesting how a lot of people will listen to health and nutrition information from like doctors and surgeons who, and the thing that I love so much about your story, right, is like, and we've had Steve on before, and when I look at like you and Steve, it's such a perfect representation of both sides of the coin, right? Like you were raised in health, like from since you were young, and your mom was a part of this and all these things. So it's like you kind of grew up with it, whereas Steve knew nothing about nutrition. And I remember when you and I first started working together, I was like, oh, that was my story, because I was born and raised in Hawaii, where a lot of the local food is not very healthy for you, but people will always say, well, we weren't taught how to eat healthy. That was kind of the excuse. And I think that science piece is so pivotal, because the other thing that when we first met, one of the things that you told me that I didn't really kind of realize is that Shockley's been around for like close to like 80 years, which
no,
is kind of,
70, but
oh, right, 70,
almost
yes.
70. Yeah,
Yeah. But I
no,
mean,
no,
still,
close.
the fact that it's been decades, when a lot of these like health and wellness companies are not even around for 5 years, right? Like that longevity piece is really invaluable. And I think when you look at the way the world is, right, and you can look at this in so many different ways, whether it's health and fitness, whether it's getting a degree, whether it's building a business, right? Like a lot of those things take time, and that sustainability piece is so critical, right? Like we look at a lot of these people who invest in these get rich quick schemes and programs, and they're like, oh, that doesn't work. It's like, well, yeah, because there really is no secret to success other than doing the work, right? And like you didn't build this huge business that you have where you've done millions of dollars over 50 years in a decade. Like it's been 50 years, and you've seen the changes, not only both from a health perspective, but also just when you look at like the world in general, right? Like you've seen the food quality change, you've seen
Technology
the,
taking on. Yeah.
yeah,
When
right.
I
And
started my business, it was just me and a telephone.
yeah, I
No,
remember.
no computers, just a telephone.
Yeah, incredible. And the number one thing that I really love about you, because you and I are so aligned in that perspective of, it really is about impact and service. And when I look at sustainability from especially a business standpoint, right? You really can only sustain that if you actually care about people. Because if you're in it for the money, if you're just trying to sell stuff and all these different things, it it may work for a little, but it's going to come to a point where you're just like, okay, there needs to be something kind of bigger
Yeah.
than this. And I I always will share with people, like, if they do nothing else, like, at least reach out to Suzanne and like have a conversation. You'll be surprised with a lot of the things that you learn. And I remember when I was in my finance career, I would always tell people, like, we don't know what we don't know. There's been so many things that you've shared with me where I was like, oh wow, I had no idea. And it's because people are operating with inaccurate information. That's also a huge part of why, right? Like, a lot of people aren't hitting their health and wellness goals, or why it's becoming harder to sustain, right? And you and I were talking about this a lot last year. Oh, when you were doing the whole weightlifting thing, a lot of people think like, oh, I just need to lift the heaviest weight, when it's about sustainability. Like, move weight that you can actually control, other than if you hurt yourself, like, what is that going to do? And what I'm really curious about for you, when we look at this kind of closing the gap between your health span versus lifespan, how how and maybe this could be both from like a science perspective and also just a combination of your own experience. When I think about it from just like a logical standpoint, it seems pretty crazy to me how you can be healthier at 81 than you are when you're 50, right? Because the thing that a lot of people look at it is, as you get older, a lot of people will like decline because you're kind of like deteriorating. You lose a lot of things as you get older. Like, I remember you were telling me, with in terms of nutrition, which is why the supplementation piece is so critical. The older that you get, the less your body like absorbs, or it's harder to get like all your nutrients and vitamins. And what can you share with people? Because I primarily serve the 50 plus age demographic, right? There's a lot of people who you know very well who are in that space. They're dealing with a lot of health challenges as they get older, um, coming to that point of retirement, and that the sustainability part of their health, right? Like, what's the point of working 30, 40 years? You have all this money, and then when you get to that point, you can't really enjoy it. So
Yeah.
I'm just curious.
Well, I think, well, first, in the United States, our healthcare system is backwards, unfortunately. Doctors don't know anything about nutrition. I had a prime example about that just the other day. Actually, it's a girl I went to high school with, and she called me and she said she has very high vitamin D levels. And what should she do? And she told me the story that I guess probably 6 months or so ago, she had fallen and hit her elbow, and she went to the uh, those quick check what care places that are on the corner of many towns, and to get an x-ray. And they said, well, you should go to the orthopedic surgeon because he has a better x-ray machine than we do here. So she goes there, and he took the x-ray, but in this visit, he asked how much vitamin D she took, and she said 50 milligrams a day. And he said, "Oh no, you need to be taking 5,000 every day." Now this guy never tested her blood levels of vitamin D, so he had no clue how much she had. But he's the orthopedic surgeon, and she's not. She's like the typical American person. The doctor's God, and so if he says that's what I need to do, and she goes and does it. Well, 6 months later or so, it's time she goes to a yearly physical. She goes to the physical, has her blood tested, and her vitamin D levels are sky high. So, so this doctor did not do her any favors. Um, so, what's the main risk of having very high vitamin D levels is brittle bones. So here, she's the same age as I am. it's kind of funny. She was the one that was, she was the one that was uh, nominated and won most athletic in our high school senior class. Now it's me, the one that's most athletic. I mean, I was not, I was no athlete did not apply to me when I was in high school. You know, she could kick the ball the farthest, hit the ball the farthest, jump the highest, and you know now she's had 2 knee replacements and a hip replacement, and I have none of that because she kind of laughed at me through the years. You know, that I was like a little bit of a health nut, and and yeah, it pays because now she's calling me trying to get healthier, and you know that's why I say, you know, you've got to take care of your health or you lose it. And you know, when people, and a majority of the people in this country have lost their health because I mean, there's a place for the doctor when you have an emergency. I mean, there was a time about a year ago, and I cut myself when I was visiting my son and his family in California, that in the middle of the night, had to go to the hospital in an emergency, to the doctor in the emergency part of it, to get 10 stitches. Of course, I need health insurance for that, but that's sick insurance, and you have to get sick to use it. The health insurance is watching your diet, eating healthy foods. I have never eaten anything at McDonald's, Wendy's, you know, all that stuff. Exercise, and you have to supplement your diet. There's no getting around it because there's many studies that show that the quality of nutrition in even the healthy, organically grown fruits and vegetables, the nutrient quality of those is not the same as it was in the 20, 30 years ago. So for that reason alone, you have to supplement your diet with a good healthy supplement. And what I use is something called Vitalizer, and it's a strip, multivitamin strip. And this is a package of 6, so you take one of these a day, not all of them. And then I start my day with a protein shake. So between these 2 things, I've got good health insurance that keeps me healthy. Um, this product here has an interesting origin. There was a lady, Dr. Gladys Block at University of California, Berkeley. She's a well-known nutritional epidemiologist, and she was really interested to know whether or not these health nuts who took a lot of different nutritional supplements for 20 years or longer were wasting their money or if it was doing them any good. So she approached several nutrition companies. Shaklee was the only one that would let her use some of their customers. So there were 300 people involved in that study. And they were normalized to age, weight, ethnicity, and gender. And sorry.
It's okay. Take your time. You don't have to rush.
I don't know what's come over me, but anyway. So she studied different parameters, and my husband and I were actually in the study, so a lot of the people were not slender and appropriate body weight like my husband and I are. There were some pretty plump people in that bunch. And she compared it to a group that only used a multivitamin of some sort, not Shaklee, or some that didn't use anything at all. Well, what she discovered surprised her, because the people that used the Shaklee supplements had 1/3 the incidence of heart disease and 1/4 the incidence of diabetes. And in some of the studies, the parameters, the ones who took a multivitamin over the counter from some brand or others that wasn't controlled, the multivitamin people did worse than the people that took no multivitamin or no supplements. So what does that tell you? So what Shaklee did is they took the 8 most commonly used nutritional supplements and put them into that strip of 6 tablets, and they created 4 different delivery systems so the right nutrients are delivered to the right place at the right time. Because some of them are water soluble and better absorbed in the stomach. Some are more oil soluble and better absorbed in the small intestine, where the gallbladder can deposit some bile, and which helps break down the fat and helps the body absorb it. So
Wow. Suzanne, I want to pause you really quick because I heard something and I just want to clarify that I heard this correctly. So you're saying that when Dr. Gladys did this survey of people, the people that were taking a non-Shaklee multivitamin, their numbers came up worse than people who weren't
in
taking
in
anything.
some of the parameters that she tested, yes, they were worse than those who didn't take any.
Wow. And
Yeah.
and I think that really goes back to this idea that you and I have talked about a lot, and you've made videos. And if anybody who's watching this, like if you want to, obviously reach out to Suzanne, but if you want like one of those videos and you want to kind of see what it is, reach out to her. She can send you one. Heck, she can probably even do another one at some point. There's kind of this myth, and I'm kind of curious, Suzanne, on your thoughts about this. I've Ever since I've been an entrepreneur, I've been very hesitant around this quote unquote word expert, because I think that
Everybody's an expert. There's a
right
there's a lot of
and
them on the internet.
right, and I think what's dangerous is when we go into um, things and that we don't really know anything about in general. What happens is anybody who knows like anything, we look at as an expert because they know more than us, right? But with in regards to this whole health thing, what we also probably forgot to mention is that your husband Steve taught at the medical school at North Carolina for, what was it, like 40
40
years,
years.
and he was the one that really kind of created and implemented a nutrition program
Well, he
in
saw what Shaklee vitamins had done for him when we got married. I started giving he was using one a day brand, and he doesn't like to shop. And I said, well, this is what we're going to use because they're better than your one a day brand. And he stopped getting sick and colds. He was always with colds when we were in graduate school. He played host to every bug that went through the dorm he lived in. So he quit getting sick, and that got his attention. Then he was looking into things because he thought all drugs or all vitamins are produced according to good manufacturing practices. They're not. That's rare that they are. And he thought they are all backed by science. No, there's more money spent on marketing of the vitamin product than there is on the science. There's more marketing behind the product than there's science. And that's a sad state of affairs, but that's a lot of these things that are on the shelves in the drugstores and Walmart and all those places. A lot of those Costco types and Sam's Club, a lot of those supplements are made by just a couple manufacturers, and they just make them in batches and they slap the label on for Costco, and the same bottle gets a label for Walmart, and that's how it goes. So they're not produced according to good manufacturing practices. There's no science behind it. If you most people don't know how to read a label, so if they put things on the label to inflate the label to make it look really good, and since they're not produced according to good manufacturing practices, you can't be assured what's on the labels and in the tablets in the bottle. There could be things that are missing totally, or there could be some other nutrient that's way high, too high, that's not healthy. So those are the things that you're up against when you think you can save a buck. Your health is your health is priceless. So saving a buck on your health is not a wise thing to do. Because to manage your health and maintain your health so you don't get sick and end up with diabetes or who knows what, heart disease,
Hmm.
cancer, all these things are devastating diseases. The quality of life for those people are, zero to none.
Hmm.
Um, so to me, That's why a good nutrition program is what I call health insurance. And, to me, my health is my most valuable possession. If I don't have it, I can't do the things I want to do. I don't have the energy. I don't have the muscles to do lift. And, you know, when I go to the grocery store and the bag is full of groceries, and the grocery guy that puts the stuff in the bag, he says, "Do you want me to put it in 3 bags?" No, I can handle it. I show my guns. But they look at me and think I'm weak. But no, I am not. you know. So I don't know. Just that's why I'm always trying to inspire others to take good care of their health, so they can enjoy life in their 80s and beyond, instead of being old and sedentary. There's a lot of people old and sedentary in their 50s and on a ton of drugs. You know, that's another thing. The Shakti people in that study were on, most of them were on no drugs, and the maximum number of drugs was 1 or 2, where the other groups was sky 5, 6 drugs. That's another thing. Doctors will give you a drug for this, and then they have to give you another drug for the side effect of the first drug, and by the time you know it, you're on 10 or so different medications, and they don't. They just don't. They're not. Your body's not made to be filled with medications. It's made to be filled with nutrition, so that it can heal itself. Dr. Shaklee always said, give your body a smorgasbord of nutrition and it can heal itself. But a smorgasbord of a bunch of drugs causes more side effects than you can shake a stick at. I mean, I had one lady that she finally listened. Her sister wanted me to talk to her. She finally listened. She needed to lose a lot of weight. It was a difficult struggle to get her to want to at the first, but she's lost over 130 pounds. She's gotten rid of her medications that she was on 19 medications. She was in the hospital a lot of the time with kidney stones that were caused by some of the medications she was taking. Now, to me, that is not, that's not healthy. That's not a lifestyle. She was always in pain. She was so overweight that she just didn't fit in her environment. The chair was too small. She couldn't get up. She couldn't take steps, up and down stairs. It was difficult. She couldn't manage to exist in her environment because she wasn't healthy. And when that lady sees me now, she squeezes me so hard about squeezes the air out of me because she feels so much better and she has so much more. I mean, she's not carrying around 130 pounds. Put 130-pound pack on your back and see how see how fast you can move. No wonder, that's a lot of weight that's being carried around unnecessarily that causes a lot of issues. I don't know. Whatever I can say to them, if one person hears me, take good care of your health. That's the most important thing you can do.
Yeah, absolutely. And when one of the things that's been so interesting to Suzanne, because I've heard you talk about this a lot as well, is so many people subscribe to that whole like diet culture. I remember you and I were having a conversation where for me personally, like I don't use the word diet in my vocabulary. When I started my own health and fitness journey, I was very big on sustainability. Like I wanted something that I could do for the rest of my life. When you look at, because you see all these things, right? The fad diets, the new programs, the new companies that appear every day, it seems, and they all have, a lot of people are saying the same thing but different ways, and spinning and twisting things. If somebody is like watching this, right, and they're like, hey, I want to get my health in order, odds are this isn't their first like rodeo, right? They've probably been wanting to do it for a long time.
Every year it starts and then it goes away.
what what would you say, like, when you work with people and the insight that you share with them, what would you say are the three things that, like, working with you is so different than working with other people to the point where they actually will cross that finish line? Because I've come to find that many people, I'd say most people, are good starters but poor finishers.
Mhm.
And one of the things that you've clearly exemplified due to the sustainability and longevity in your own health and fitness journey is by getting people to really adopt this as a lifestyle. Like, what would you share if you had to say like two or three things that could really make a difference for anyone tuning in today?
I think the first thing is eliminate the word diet because that has a start and a finish. People say, "Oh, you're going to lose X amount of weight in 90 days." So you start and you do what you're supposed to do, and it's 90 days, and the diet's over, and you think, "Okay, it's over. Now I'm back to what I used to do." Well, going on that kind of a program, you're not being taught what you need to be taught is lifestyle. So you can't keep doing what you've been doing and expect a different result. You know what they call that? Crazy. So i- if you really want to make changes in your health, you have to change what you're doing, eliminate the things that are causing to deteriorate your health and add things that are going to improve your health, and just consider it, this is what you're going to be doing as your lifestyle. And if I can get somebody to practice lifestyle coaching, it's also how you think about things too. Um, so you have to work on that from the thought process, but to get it into your practice of lifestyle, and that means lifestyle goes on forever. It's not like a diet starts and stops. And 9 times out of 10, people go on a diet. The typical diet, 1,500 calories. They lose they lose muscle as well as the fat. So then when they lose the muscle, they're losing metabolic rate because a pound of muscle will burn 50 calories in a day. A pound of fat will burn 1 calorie a day. So it's not a good even trade-off. And so as you lose pounds, it's not controlled. Most diets aren't high protein, so you maintain your muscle. And actually, on a high protein diet, you can actually gain some weight, but you lose inches because a pound of fat occupies a much more space than a pound of muscle. Because muscle's dense and
Yeah.
fat is kind of fluffy and squishy and takes up a lot of room in the
I'm
body.
Yeah, I'm happy that you brought that up because I remember last year when we were talking about, this closing the gap between your health span versus lifespan. It's it's really interesting how the way that the health and wellness industry works in terms of like selling products is they base it off of like physical appearance, right? But when you actually look at a lot of people, like just because you're skinny doesn't actually mean that you're healthy, right? Like if you're like starving yourself.
Fat.
Yeah, exactly. And I love what you said about in terms of sustainability because one of the things that you and I were talking about on the pre-live of this is that and it goes back to this whole instant gratification of the way that our world is now, where it's like
Yeah.
we're so used to we have the entire world at our fingertips. It's like and people expect things to happen like instantly, where it's like if you've been eating poorly and not exercising for 2 decades, they're upset when it doesn't change overnight, in a couple weeks. And what one of the things that I remember my personal trainer shared with me, and I was happy that you brought this up, was he said the scale is very deceiving because of like what you were saying, or a lot of people will use like they have these newer scales now that will calculate like BMI. There's a lot of things where those scales, like, they can't dictate how much muscle it is, right? So if you're working out, if you're eating properly and doing all the right things, you could actually be healthier, but you're gaining weight. Number one, because a lot of people are underweight, right? They're not eating enough. That was,
Not only that, but they gain weight because muscle weighs more. A pound of muscle it's you're less space because it's dense, but you can weigh more and your clothes are looser. So instead of following the scale, use a tape measure. How my hips an inch or two's difference? Less? Is my waist getting smaller? Are my thighs getting smaller? You know, when you sculpt out the body by getting rid of the fat, then you see what's, a healthy torso that could weigh more because it's more muscular, but that doesn't mean that's not bad. It's a good thing to have more muscle and less fat because fat, particularly around the torso, is really, really unhealthy fat. So, yes, so getting rid of the fat and having more muscle, and that makes you stronger. And you can, as you age, keeping your muscle, you can pick up your grandchildren. You can haul around the groceries from the store to your car. When you get home, you can bring them in the house, and you're not huffing and puffing and pooped because you have no muscle and no energy to just do things that need to be done on a daily basis. It just, your body was made to be healthy. It was put here. It's a temple that God gave us to house the Holy Spirit in us. And I don't want to go off on religion, but you need to have a nice house to live in. This is the only one you've got. So you take good care of it. Have strong muscles. Have a healthy immune system so you're not catching every bug that goes. I mean, we didn't have COVID, we didn't take the shots, it, there's, if your body's healthy and the immune system healthy, you can pretty well keep yourself healthy. Um,
yeah. And one of the things, because I remember when we were working together, you were telling me about you went to this like group thing, and there was somebody who kind of started, I believe it was last year, right, on their fitness journey with you and Steve. I see so many people that feel like, it's too late. And I would love to know, like, what advice and what insight can you share with people? It might be harder for you to look at it on your end because, like we talked about earlier, right, like health has always been a part of your life. But there was a time where your husband Steve, I mean, he was really probably your biggest success story,
yeah,
right?
it really is because he saw what eating, he was raised with prime rib and baked potatoes. That was the thing. His dad ate ice cream for breakfast. So, you know, that's that's not the best. um, so when we got married, I focused on, always had a salad. Salad was, as many vegetables that I could get. I always went with the seasons. Luckily, about a mile from my house on Saturday, there's a really good farmer's market. So what's at the farmer's market's what we eat. That if you're lucky enough to have something like that available to you, take advantage of it and eat with the seasons because, there's a reason for that, that in the cold weather, we eat sweet potatoes and things that have a little more oomph to them because we burn more calories just keeping warm. And, if you exercise out in the cold, you need a little bit more calories to keep you warm. And so we did that. We didn't live on prime rib, and we were graduate students, so we didn't live on prime rib, which is a good thing. And he quit getting sick. And he thought, like I said earlier, that this nutrition industry was regulated by the government, and it's not. So anyway, long story short, when he got to the job in the medical school at UNC, he was taken aback that there was, like, I don't know, 6 or 8 hours of nutrition taught in the whole 4 years of medical school. There was more focus on the drugs being talked about. This drug helps that, this, that, and the other thing. So it was a long, hard battle that he finally got a nutrition course, which he taught first year med students, and they really liked it. And then he continued his efforts to the fact that UNC Medical School is one of the ones who have a department of nutrition in the medical school, and that's only like 10% or less of the med schools across the country. And he also wrote the nutrition chapters in the biochemistry book that's used, the major one that's used in medical schools today. So yeah, just seeing what health and good nutrition does. Ended up UNC having a department of nutrition in the medical school. So it does have an impact. Yeah.
Yeah, incredible. And what, because a huge part of this conversation is about sustainability, right? Because one of the biggest lessons that I learned my first year in the professional training and coaching space is that so many people are trying to essentially like teach people to be like them. And the biggest thing that I learned is that the nice part about the work that you do, Suzanne, is that I don't think people realize how customizable food is, right? Like if in order to get a certain food group, say for example, like you don't like potatoes, like you can eat rice or you can eat like oats or quinoa. Like
Yeah.
there's so many different things, and oftentimes what I feel like happens when it comes to health and wellness is people become so rigid, right? Where it's like, oh, I need to eat this way because this person said that, and you really don't even like a lot of the food. I remember when I first started working with my personal trainer, he had this food plan thing, and I scrapped it because I was like, I don't like any of those food, but I understood a lot of the basics and the generics, right? Like you want a high quality protein, so like chicken, fish, like all these other things, and you have your choice of vegetables. I mean, obviously some are healthier. They say like the dark, leafy greens are probably better for you than others than the starchy ones, but there's so much adaptability in this, right? And
Yeah.
that's the piece that I feel like so many people miss. I remember when one of the things that you said when we first started working together that I never really thought about it. But when I look at it from a sustainability standpoint, not only from a health standpoint, but also like for the environment as well. Like when you eat with the seasons, like you're getting the freshest fruit and vegetables, right? Like you're
Yeah.
not getting stuff that has to be flown over,
From
and you don't know like what
from
happens in that
the other
process.
hemisphere, now everybody's still, it's wintertime in North Carolina, and everybody still wants asparagus and blueberries and those sorts of things that are spring and summer veggies and fruits. So, you can get them at the farmers or the grocery store, and they come from Peru, where Peru is now in this. It's summertime in Peru because they're in the southern hemisphere, so they have access to blueberries, but they have to be picked and boxed and shipped and flown up here, and then goes to some food distribution warehouse, and then they have to put them on a truck to send them to Trader Joe's, Whole Foods, whatever grocery store you have in your neighborhood. um, so you can get vegetables and fruits that are summer vegetables in the middle of winter with, the way our planet and our earth and our abilities to make things happen has shrunk our earth so that getting a blueberry from South America is not impossible. In the 1800s, it would have been unheard of, So that's and there's how your foods lose the nutritional value, because I don't know what stage they would pick a blueberry in Peru. Maybe it's still slightly green. I don't know, but it's still picked in a country far away in a different season than you're living in. It's packaged and then flown to, I don't know, maybe it's not packaged in Peru, who knows? But somehow or another, it ends up in a plastic box in a warehouse that goes on a big truck that takes it to the local grocery store, and you pick it up and put it in your cart, and you have blueberries for breakfast the next morning that came from Peru, or asparagus for dinner that night that came from Peru. You know, well, food that I eat comes from Chapel Hill's local farmer market, out, 5-10 miles out in the country from where I live. So we eat sweet potatoes and we eat greens, and you know, you can get carrots and dark leafy greens, kales and chard and spinach and different kinds of lettuces. So that's what we live on in the winter and the summertime. And then there's tomatoes and peaches that are locally grown, that we can add to our leafy greens that are still available in the summertime. So yeah, eating with the seasons is the way we were made, actually. So
Yeah, powerful. It's and I know we'll have this series throughout the years. So if anybody has any questions or anything that they want to drop for Suzanne, you're more than welcome to drop it in the comments. I suggest for everyone who checks this out, like at least have a conversation with Suzanne. I mean, there's just so much that she has to share, both from a science perspective as well as just her own experience. And I mean, she's been able to sustain her healthy lifestyle. I mean, we say like 50 plus years, but Suzanne, I feel like it's probably been closer to like 70. I mean, I think like you've
well,
probably,
I saw a picture of myself when I was 9 years old, and I didn't like the way I looked because I was a little bit chubby. So
mm,
I've been at this since I was 9 years old.
yeah, so probably going on like 70 plus years, right? And I mean, that's just insane from a longevity perspective. One of one of the things that comes up that I see a lot of people have issues with is like there's kind of this negative connotation, right? Going back to the whole instant gratification, people have a hard time like doing the same thing like over and over again. I remember for me, I just got very accustomed to eating the same things over and over again. Like I would have a breakfast that I would eat. Gosh, I ate it for like 2 or 3 years in a row. And people would look at me like, oh my gosh, like how could you do that? I could not. Right. So it's like the thing that I love about you though, Suzanne, you've even it was funny. I was in Jacksonville towards the end of last year into the beginning of this one, and I was talking to my aunt about this, and she's like, "Oh, she's like, honey, she's like, we need to try chicken in the crock pot." And I was like, "Well, Suzanne was the one that told me about that. I was used to just like either cooking it in the air fryer or grilling it, and all these different things." And there's there's just so many different strategies and little like ways that because I think a lot of people, Suzanne, would you say that this is a safe assessment that a lot of people are really kind of like turned off by the whole nutrition and healthy lifestyle because they think number one, it's expensive, right? It requires a lot of money. And then number two, it's like I don't have time, right? Those are kind of like the two main things.
Yeah.
Yet there's so many different options
Well,
both ways.
if you shop around the edges of the grocery store, it's really less expensive than, and that's where the nutrition stuff is, than buying the stuff in the center that's manufactured to sit on the shelf until somebody buys it. So that's all the dead food is contained in the center as part of the store. But people, I can't speak for other countries, but in this country, people are on the quick and easy fix. So it's a decision that has to be made. Am I willing to? I mean, I do a lot of cook the chicken in the crock pot, and then I can do other things with it. I can make stir fries with it. I can take some of it and steam it with vegetables and have that with a salad. I can mix it in a big salad and have like a chef salad with chicken in it. Um, in the summertime when it's warm, I can take a tortilla and put some guacamole or hummus in there and grate up some vegetables and put the chicken in there, and it's really good. Makes that really nice, tortilla thing. Um, a taco, a healthy taco, I guess you could call it. I don't know, a wrap. But um, yeah, or you can take the day when you have time, like maybe a Sunday or a Saturday for someone that works 8 to 5, and make a nice healthy pot of soup. I made a delicious pot of soup last Sunday because we had some company coming over and we were meeting about something. And I thought, I'll just make a pot of soup. We can have that after we finish. And, the pot of soup was sweet potatoes from the local person. I cooked some black beans and mixed all that up in a soup recipe, and it was delicious. And it's lasted. Well, we ate the last of it today. Not we didn't eat it every day. I made it dinners that were a little bit different some of the days of the week. But you know, you can it. Yes, it takes a little time. You can't just go to the grocery store and get a box of macaroni and cheese and come home and open it up and cook it. I mean, that's fast and easy, quick and unhealthy. Or, people, moms are running the Tijuana taxi and they're going all directions to get the kids to the soccer game and the girl to the dance lesson and who knows what. And then everybody's hungry. So, oh, I'm just going to stop by the pizza store and bring home a pizza. And then that's dinner. And that's just total junk. There's so, yes, to eat healthy, it takes some effort, but boy, the returns are surely worth it.
Yeah, and I think a good phrase to really like wrap up that part of the conversation is like compared to what, right? Because it's like I know one of the biggest things for me when I moved to South Florida, because I was kind of like, building my business and getting things like off the ground and running. I wasn't like eating optimally like I normally do. So I was like, eating out and all these different things. And what was so interesting is when I started like going to the store and like buying food and all these different things, not only did I save like a ton of money,
Mm,
but I noticed a huge difference like when I was like, oh, I feel like so much better. Like I don't feel so like heavy and
mhm.
things would operate. So I think for a lot of people who are in that position, that would kind of be the way that I would look at it is like compared to what? Because if you're not eating like your own home cooked meals, you're eating stuff that other people are making. You really don't know what's in it.
Count
Um,
and count on high fat, salt, and sugar.
yeah, and then it's like it would have been so much cheaper for you to go buy some food instead of paying like thousands of dollars in medical bills or
Oh, yeah.
all these type of things. So that that's such a powerful way of looking at it, as well as there's just so many unique ways on how you can sustain it, right? And the nice part about it too is one of the things that really helped me with my journey on like sustaining health and fitness and these things is spices, right? Because it's like I could eat chicken every single day, but you can always like play with the spices. You can make your own like sauces and mix stuff and all that type of stuff. So
Yeah.
that's
When I put chicken in a crock pot, it's never the same. I always, I have a lot of herbs and spices that I do. So I thought, oh, I'll dump some of this in and some of that in today. I just created chicken. I like to put it in a crock pot the night before with the herbs and spices that I choose and then some lemon juice to sit overnight. And then I get up in the morning and put it turn it on, put it in the container and turn on the heat. But yeah, you can change it up. It doesn't have to be just crock pot chicken. It can taste all sorts of different ways. Yeah.
Yeah, this has been incredible. Dendi, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for being here. If you have any questions for Suzanne or anything that you're curious, doesn't have to be necessarily about. We're talking about sustaining your health in 2025, but if you have any questions about health, wellness, feel free to drop it in the comments. Suzanne, we've kind of talked about so many different things. I think when we look at health and wellness and from a sustainability standpoint, there's so many different ways that you can tackle this conversation. You shared so many incredible tips for people to not only sustain it, but also like there's so many people who aren't able to sustain it because their information is just inaccurate, right? We talked about how a lot of medical and health professionals who a lot of people are, getting their nutrition and supplementation information aren't majority of them aren't qualified to actually teach it, right? So it's like you have
Well,
the
yeah, if
blind leading the blind.
right, and a lot of doctors and nurses are way overweight too.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I have a friend that's going to nursing school, and they had um, a ceremony this last one. Well, I guess it was the first part of December for the graduation, and I was appalled because the lady who was the head of this nursing school was obese. And several of the other people on stage that were part, the instructors for the or the nursing school were way overweight. And see, they're setting a poor example for people going into the healthcare system. And I don't know about you, but I see so many doctors that are way overweight and nurses. So it's just, I visited one place at Duke University. It was a integrated health place practice, and I was interested to learn something about it. So I went over there and I set an appointment to just talk to see a doctor and to kind of check it out. Well, the only one that was halfway decent size was the young lady that checked me in. The nurse that did the vitals and all that stuff, she was 3 times my size. Her leg was bigger than me. The doctor was overweight. I mean, and these people are going to tell me how to stay healthy?
I was laughing because I always laugh when you will share with me, like, when you go see the doctor or whatever, and they're blown away by your numbers, or you had a recent one. The nice thing with the way that you approach this is that so many people look at it as, like, nutrition, exercise, and supplementation, but there's so much more to this health and wellness conversation, where you were saying, like, Shackley got some new, like, products to help people with, like, skincare and
Oh
makeup
yeah,
and all these different things.
health
And
is
yeah,
health.
they make
Yeah, there's a whole picture of health. Is your environment contributes to your health big
yep.
time. There's a lot of toxins and cleaners and household care products that people use that are very toxic to the body. Um, there's a lot of chemicals that are used in skincare and personal care products that are what you put on your skin goes in that can cause problems. Um, so yeah, you have to be aware that it's a whole. Your environment is part of your health as well as what you put in your mouth. Even though the three major diseases in this country, well, cancer too might be. Well, I'll say your environment contributes to all three, but it's the main thing is what you put in your mouth, because the three major diseases in the United States are all diet related: heart disease, diabetes, and cancer. They're all diet related,
Yeah,
and in,
powerful.
in environmental too. But what you put in your mouth, and diabetes, people are overweight, so they have diabetes, and that can lead to sight, loss of limbs, all sorts of things. They're not very mobile. They can't eat. What they eat is limited. They have to watch have to have this thing on your arm that pumps insulin into you. It's just that's existing. That's not life. That's not living lifestyle.
Yeah, powerful. And I mean, my favorite part of that conversation is always, like, when they see your numbers, they know, because, like you were saying, you're a huge health nut, and every it's like you use Shackley for everything: your makeup, your skincare, your supplements, your like, cleaners.
Yeah, yeah,
There's been so many things where you're like, you talked about using the cleaner, and you got, like, a stain out of your wedding dress that, like,
they work.
nothing.
Yeah,
Yeah. I mean, it's so cool. And what's funny is you've actually been able to convert, right, some of your, like, doctors and people that you see to like actually use some of the products, and they're
Yeah.
like, oh wow. And I think that I always like to say, right, because so many people expect people to do better, but it's like, how can we expect people to do better when they don't know better? Right. Exactly. And I
Yeah.
love that you're teaching that not only from like people in your community now with social media, like all over.
You froze. You're frozen, Paul. We lost Paul. You
Am I
back?
back?
Now
Okay, I
you
think I'm back. I think I'm back. Okay, good.
got.
We talked about this earlier. The weather's been a bit crazy in Florida, so I've been kind of in and out. But Suzanne, this has been such a fun conversation. We'll obviously dive more into this. Maybe the next time we do this, we'll talk about nutrition because I'm sure there's so many people that are like, oh my gosh, like that's my biggest challenge in on my health journey. I don't know where to begin. We'll share, maybe you can share some recipes and tips and things like that. But do you have any final thoughts, like anything that you want to share to anybody tuning in tonight, or just anything that you kind of wish that you knew at the beginning of your journey that would have been so impactful?
Oh, I think when I was a child, it was my mom that was in control of what I ate and did. But I learned from her that, natural is better than man-made stuff. So, man-made stuff is high in salt, fat, and sugar. They're all addictive. So they have you. That's the major food corporations. So I think the main thing for me is I just realized that my health was my prized possession and I wanted to do whatever I could to maintain it and make it better. And it became my lifestyle, which, it wasn't a diet, it was my lifestyle. That's how I lived. And so if I go out to eat a meal in a restaurant, I go to a restaurant where I can have something on the menu that will fit my lifestyle. So I'm protective of my health, and that determines in some fashions what I do. I don't go to the grocery store and pick up something and throw it in the fast oven and call it dinner. I plan my meals. I plan my meals. I go to the farmer's market. I get enough food because they only come on Saturdays. So I get enough food on Saturdays. So by the time Friday comes, my refrigerator is pretty darn empty because I've planned and I've made dinners and lunches out of, you know, fresh fruits and vegetables that I've gotten at the farmer's market. So it's just my lifestyle. It's just who I am. It's how I exist. I've never been one to I've never eaten in a fast food restaurant. I mean, I look at that stuff and it just, it doesn't look like I want to even put it in, it'd be an insult to put it in my stomach. It's just not food. And so, well, bottom line, it's your lifestyle, and whatever lifestyle you create for yourself is determines who you are. And so I like who I am. I'm proud of the fact that I have really great health, and that's jigs around somebody half my age, because I did it, and I'm still doing it, and I'm getting stronger every day, 4 times a week with weights. I'm getting stronger. I'm lifting heavier weights. So that's my that's just my sugar, salt, and fat. That's how it's my reward. It's just I'd rather have that and spend my spare time at the gym working with a trainer. It's just become my lifestyle. And so I can't explain it in any other way. It's not a diet, it's my lifestyle. And boy, I am so happy with my lifestyle. I mean, I really am. It took me a long time to decide, why was I put on this planet? Why was I put here? And then I finally discovered that it was because I can inspire others to take good care of their health. Once I found that, I was amazed at how many times that word inspire came back to me. And then my marketing slogan, I guess you would say, is closing the gap between your health span and your lifespan. So the closer you can get those two to be the same, the better your life is for as long as you live, you know. I just want to go to bed some night and not wake up. Not because I spent years fighting diabetes or had to go through cancer, radiation, chemotherapy, all that stuff. That's that's awful. That's worse than existing. I didn't want to go through that. So I'm I decided I wasn't, and the way to attack that was to have a healthy lifestyle and stick to it. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it because that's what's worked for me.
Yeah, incredible. And we talked in this episode about like sustainability, and I want to make something very clear. Like Suzanne and I were big fans of mint chocolate chip ice cream. Like just because you eat clean and
Well,
things like that.
well, it's not. It's what you do on a daily basis that's
Yeah,
the determining factor. But yeah, there's a really nice ice cream store way out in the country, out with the in the cow pastures from where I live, and not real often, but every once in a while we go out there and sit on the
yeah.
porch and watch the sun go down and have mint chocolate. Steve likes chocolate. I like mint chocolate chip. So
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, mint chocolate chips like one of my favorites too. So it's like, and that's what I think, because when I started my journey, I went about it like very cold turkey. Like I cut out like all the junk food. Like I just stopped. I didn't eat ice cream or any like sweets for like 6 months, and that'll work for some people. And I know, but for a lot of people, like it just doesn't work. And I share that story because so many people think like it means that you're giving something up for like ever, and it's like no, that's not how that works. It's about like moderation, right? And what you were saying. So
yeah.
yeah,
It's what you do on a daily basis that's important.
yeah,
What you do every once in a while, that doesn't make any. So long as it's not every once in a while on a frequent basis, but 3 or 4 times a year, you go to the dairy in the country and you get an ice cream. It's not gonna kill you, you know? So,
yeah, for sure. Suzanne, thank you so much for being here. I want to thank everybody who is watching this either live or on the replay. And I just want to reiterate this again. If you haven't met Suzanne, if you haven't had a conversation, I highly recommend to reach out to her, send her a connection request. And she's not here to sell you products and all these things. For her, it really is about service, and she wants to help people take care of their health. And that's the biggest reward that you could give her is just taking control of your health. So, Suzanne, thank you so much for being here.
you
You and I
all
will be doing
keep
this again, and it's it's such a pleasure getting to speak with you, and I can't wait to see where the future of this series goes now that we're doing LinkedIn Live video versus the audio events that we did last year.
yep,
Yeah.
onward.
Alrighty. Have a have a great night, everyone.